Hey guys, long time no see. This is my first video that I've made in over a year now because I've been on an extended maternity leave. I had a daughter over the summer. She is 7 months old now. I can't believe it, but I've been kind of feeling that I want to come back to YouTube just in time for them to axe my channel, just right in time. So I was like, what can I do for them to axe my channel in the speediest manner? And I was like, I'm going to have Dave Cullen on. I'll do an interview with Dave Cullen. They'll delete my channel immediately and it'll be great. But for real, if I can do if the last thing on my channel is that, I bring some people's eyes to your content. And I'm also having, Legal Man on Thursday. I think I'm going to do an interview with Black Pigeon. And then I get the boot. I'll be very happy with the time that I've had on YouTube. So without further ado, I have Computing Forever, Dave Cullen on my channel right now. And your channel was deleted this week. It was all the buzz. Everybody was talking about it. Could you tell us what's going on with that?
Yeah, well, I'd had a few strikes and 12 videos were removed and one of them was reinstated. So the channel was like hanging on there. But yeah, then it just boom, it was just gone. But I knew, obviously I knew it was coming for ages.
Yeah.
And look, I mean, for ages, I mean, I've been talking about it for 4 years and people, were like, you say that every year. And then finally I got to the end of 2020, I was like amazed. And now within like a week and a half of 2021 and it's gone. But now, and then it's back. And but as I said on BitChute, I really made peace with it. When it happened, it really didn't affect me, Blonde. It really didn't. I was just like, oh, okay, more of a sentimental thing, like, oh, 14 years, time to move on.
14 years. You've been doing this for 14 years.
Yeah. So yeah, so there you go. And look, when it came back, I was almost disappointed. Honestly, I got these emails from YouTube. I thought we were done. Leave me alone. Like, this relationship is over, and you're still stalking me now. Let it go. That's what I felt like. And the jilted ex-lover going, wait, he doesn't need me? Show him. And I sort of went, I said today on the other alt tech platforms, when I made today's episode of How Is This a Thing, that it's actually something I don't want to do anymore, and I won't be back. And people are like, oh, you could make trailers for videos and point them. They're going to close that loophole. They're going to consider that spam or deceptive content, and then, they're going to say you're linking to misinformation websites or terrorist websites. This is what they'll do. And I don't want to feed the beast. And also, because I've been treated so badly, it's sort of like the job that you hate where you're getting treated like crap, and then people say, just hang in there, the money's good. And I don't actually earn any money out of YouTube anymore.
Yeah.
It's just funded through the subscribers. And so why am I there? I actually, yesterday's video got, if you combine all the views from Minds, Gab TV, Odyssey, and BitChute, I got as many views, close enough to what I would get on one single YouTube video. So I'm like, this doesn't make any sense anymore. It's just something to be said for a fresh start and to be liberated from the constant, finger wagging of misinformation, hate speech. You're a bad person. That fucking shit gets to your soul and gets you down. And I'm like,
yeah,
what the hell am I taking this abuse for?
It was your video on whether or not this is a spiritual battle that got you banned. Is that true?
That's the one. Yeah.
How did they square that circle? What did they say about that video?
I said this actually to a friend of a friend the other day, and she's a smart cookie, and she was thinking about this, and I said, see, this is an example of how they don't understand the human soul. And she said, no, they actually understand it perfectly. I mean, there's this theory that the reason they selected 6 feet apart, the 2-meter rule with social distancing, is because there's a sort of an energy field that the human spirit gives off, like from the heart outwards, and this can be felt. Right? This is some theory, and this is how they actually fully understand that the more distant we are from each other, the more the human soul dies. So we get physically sick from social distancing, not trading good bacteria and viruses and that sort of thing. But we also get sort of spiritually and emotionally not having human contact and being close to other people. And where was I going with that? Why did I even bring that up? I don't know. But yeah, I mean, it's sort of like, that's it. They actually understand the human spirit very well. they understand our needs, and they've taken them away. I mean, they've taken everything away now. I mean, we'll probably get into that, but I'm sort of staggered at the tolerance of normies. I was in the city. There was a protest going on, and I was stalked actually on social media by some people who really don't like people like me. And there's a lot of them in Dublin. There's a lot of the sort of SJW far left types. And then the protests, they just couldn't happen. The police are just all over the streets, constantly moving people on. If they just gather in small groups, constant harassment and intimidation. One of my friends was arrested for the second time for just simply refusing to give his name on the streets. I mean, we don't live in the Soviet Union, so he didn't want to give his details. You know, it's a case of, you know, why are you 5 kilometers, you know, outside the 5 kilometer restriction zone? What the hell is this, Half-Life 2 or something? What is happening? I don't know, but
it's shocking, isn't it? I am shocked. I live in North Idaho, and I can't believe the widespread compliance even out here. I've never had much faith in humanity, but even I underestimated the baseline level of stupidity here. Like, I cannot believe how much stupidity I'm accosted with on a daily basis. I think a lot of it has to do with us being so secular as a society, and people have just really grown accustomed to this concept of science being their higher power. So I do have a few questions about that. I think the people of faith have a different perspective on death. I'm not going to be governed by fear in terms of this virus because I'm probably less afraid to die. I don't think that that's the end of it or anything like that. So do you think there will be a natural correction and faith will spread in our decaying society, or are people just going to double down on this we believe in science as a higher power notion?
It seems, because it's a great question, it's because it's been pushed on us so fast and adopted so fast. I get the sense that this ideology, which is not sustainable because it's built on fear, as you say, that it will burn very hot, very bright, but very fast. You would hope, because you're quite right. In Ireland, where people were once very Catholic, and my friend Thomas Sheridan, who's actually a pagan, but he's very, very interesting insights, and he's a very clever guy. I have a lot of time for him. And he also, you know, we both respect the fact that we come at this at a different angle. Christian, he's a pagan, and yet we've both identified that it is a spiritual battle. A lot of Irish people, as he's described, were more obsessive compulsive as opposed to being actually genuinely spiritual. Very few of them really were. And so it was more a case of the ritualistic behaviors of Catholicism, of going to the church, putting your hand in the font. You know, that's the modern version of that is the alcohol, right? It was constantly washing your hands. Now we have a burqa, in a sense, for the face, standing on the circles, all these ritualistic things. These things seem to be replacements in terms of the behaviors for what we used to have when we were a very religious society, at least for a lot of people. And so the fear of COVID and all the regulations and what you do in different social settings and how it governs your interactions and who you can be with and what you can do, this has given people an actual meaning, which is alarming. It doesn't fulfill them spiritually, but it has given them a meaning they didn't have, that wasn't there from just simple materialistic consumerism. You know, what I'm very surprised about, maybe I shouldn't be for the same reason, is that so many young people don't seem to be pining for the degeneracy of the bar and nightclub scene, right? And actually, maybe it makes perfect sense for the same reason that so many of them are obsessed with porn and TikTok and WhatsApp and all the other stuff that, you know, and that they've been sold this idea that you can derive meaning from just a superficial existence. But now they have this apparent existential threat in their life, which I think some of them, Blonde, they don't want to wake up to the reality that it isn't true, because then they'd have to go back to meaninglessness.
That's true. I do think that there's some element of spiritual fulfillment in this, because the people that are really buying this and that are enforcing the mask thing on a social level, yelling at people in stores and stuff, they really believe that they're benefiting the greater good. That must fulfill them in some profound way, or they wouldn't do it, right? I don't
Well,
know.
there's an interesting element of the self-policing component of this in a society that doesn't have any real spiritual leadership. Yeah, maybe just being able to exert power over others. Like, for example, the shops that I've been kicked out of, and a few of my friends as well for not wearing the mask. And I find a lot, yeah, there's women who'll be upset too, but I find a lot of the men are the most aggressive, the sort of middle management men. And that's the bureaucracy of middle management, the tyranny of middle management, right? Give somebody in a mediocre job just a tiny bit of power and they're really dangerous. Um,
Yeah.
but I've seen this. This was, you probably remember that video in London of the really big fat guy wearing the mask and he's screaming at this woman, "Why are you wearing a mask, dickhead?" He's going on like that. And it's like, holy shit. Now there's been quite a few of those kinds of videos, and I've heard from female friends getting the same abuse from men. Now, I think there's a reason for that. And I think it has something to do with how effeminate men are now and probably how low testosterone levels are when you think about it. My friend John Waters gets a lot of abuse. He took his case with Gemma O'Doherty against the state for this, to challenge the restrictions, and he's gotten a lot of grief from people on the streets shouting things at him, usually men. And the reason for that really is deep down, it's an attempt to cover up their cowardice because he's actually showing them up by not going along and complying. And these incredibly weak men in the West do not like that. And that's why they're so aggressive, especially towards women, because it's like in this particular, as my friend Justin was saying earlier, in this particular interaction that you're with this person in a shop, people are so absolutely insecure in their own masculinity that it's like, I get to exert this, but I'm not going to go after the strong men at the top leading our country into oblivion. I'm not going to challenge the government and the state, who are our real abusers. I'm going to challenge people who are weaker than me. So they'll go after, someone who's vulnerable, a weaker man, or a woman. And so I'm seeing a lot of that sort of policing going on, which, yeah, that doesn't seem like a recipe for anything good, to be honest.
That's interesting because I've been thinking it's women that are the enforcers. The people that I've been accosted by, for the most part, are women. Although I'm not getting too much pushback. I've been kicked out of a few stores and everything like that, but it's been mostly women. And so I was thinking that it was the government's kind of capitalizing on this female hysteria because we are more prone to emotional
Oh
thinking.
yeah, there's that. I think that's happening too. Yeah, absolutely. And there's plenty of Karen videos. I mean, I think the Karen meme emerged for a legitimate reason.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they're going to shriek a lot louder, aren't they? Um, but from what I look, ultimately, women will always gravitate towards safety.
Yeah.
What they perceive to be safety, and so you would sort of expect that. But the men are not standing up to this tyranny, and I think men have to lead. But instead, it's their kowtowing, and I think they're doing this. I don't know whether some guys do this as sort of curry favor. It never works. I mean, you can't appease these people, and you can't. Also, when people are afraid, I don't think this is showing us after 10 months that there's little that you can really do as an individual or a society to make other people feel as comfortable as possible if they are really wedded to the idea that they could go out of their house and die today or catch a terrible disease. What can you actually do if the government says, okay, well, yesterday it was enough to just simply social distance, reduce your social contacts, sanitize your hands into the point where you're actually crippling your immune system, or just wearing a mask, that should be enough. But if you're sufficiently terrified and they come along and go, okay, well, there's actually two or three or four more steps that we want to add, maybe it'll be like, you got to wear gloves and you got to wear a hazmat suit and you got to cut your hair. You can't have your hair too long, or you can't have facial hair because COVID sticks to hair. They can make up weird shit, right? You all got to wear goggles, earmuffs, whatever. The person who is incredibly fearful and demanding more safety might just comply with all of those things. I don't know. It's a spell, honestly. It's really mass hysteria.
No, that's true. And I was pretty hopeful in the beginning because I was thinking people's personal experience with coronavirus will collide with the narrative at some point. In the Spanish flu, 1% of the world population died. So 1 out of every 100 people that you know dead. I mean, your mom may be dead, and then at least 2 of your friends dead. Everybody wouldn't have known somebody that had died from this. I'm looking around, I know a lot of people. I don't know anybody that's died of coronavirus. Not only that, I don't know anybody that knows anybody that's died of coronavirus. I'm like, when are people going to look around and be like, there aren't bodies in the street here. This is not what I'm being told. And to the left, the personal narrative is everything. It's everything to them. Your lived experience with sexuality and with identity and everything, and that just creates your entire world. Yet they're totally impervious to the effect of their lived experience when it runs contrary to this narrative. What do you think about that? Are you having the same experience that I'm having?
E. Michael Jones and John Waters have both touched on this, which is that you've talked about the identity politics of the left, which is the obsession with bauble rights, the rights of gays to get married, the rights of trans rights, or whatever it is, or the idea that if you're black, well, we'll protect you against the racism with this particular type of hate speech, or if you're Muslim, we'll protect you against the Islamophobia, or woman against the sexism, whatever the context. But these things were always designed to simply manufacture consent. And as soon as any of those individual people breaks free of their group and says, hold on a second, I've got something to say, that's when they're censored. And like, whoa, I thought I had freedom. No. Those things were supposed to pacify you. And I think that's really, the left is only about control. And now they've been able to exert it. And so this trust that people have in institutions and in the media and in corporations, it's that meme, when the clown is putting on the makeup, and at each stage it's like, I have all the same views as the media, I have all the same views as the government, I have all the same views as the UN, and then where it gets right down to like, oh yeah, but I'm a free thinking rebel. I think that's really what it is. I don't think they ever thought the way. Yeah, that makes logical sense if they're about freedom, but they were never for freedom, because all those questions about rights were not about freedom. They were simply about manufacturing consent so they could obtain control, and they've managed to do it in one foul swoop with this lie.
Yeah, definitely. I used to think that the left was so incompetent, but now I'm like, they're just evil. I think this shows a high level of competence. I've clearly underestimated them. It's dangerous to think that somebody is just stupid when they're actually evil but competent. But this plan, now that I've seen it roll out, it was quite elegant, wasn't it?
Yeah, and now, well, yeah, and the thing that dawned on me, I think around April, May, when I was trying to get through to friends and family, and they were, suffice to say, on a very different journey than I was, is how the genius element of it that you describe, the slow boiling frog effect, is really incredible. That if we took these people who bought into the narrative from, say, December of 2019 and just pluck them from that timeline and put them into today, they'd be shocked and
resistant, I think.
And resistant, but they would say things like, if you described it to them, there's going to be this pandemic and they're not going to let us leave our house. It's like, that's ridiculous. People will make their own individual choices. Give them the information. No, that's not actually how it's going to work. In fact, you're going to demand that they locks down and so forth. And I've always used the 9/11 example. I actually saw an old VHS family home holiday video we had from 1996, and it was my brother-in-law was filming his wife to be, my sister, in Florida, and we were coming through the terminal. I'm 13 years old. It's freaky to see me so young. I saw this the other day. I was like, oh my God, cringe. But but so we're coming through the terminal. But this was we were coming through, the little long corridor that comes off the plane, whatever they call that thing.
And you could just stand right there. Yeah.
You could stand right there. She's standing right there.
Yeah.
Right there at the desk, and she could nearly get on the plane with us. It was incredible. And if you'd said to somebody, okay, in a few years' time, there's going to be this terrorist attack in New York, and admittedly, a lot of people are going to die in this attack, and these buildings are going to go down, even though it kind of looked a bit odd, and this other building that a plane didn't crash into, that's going to go down. But anyway, but here's the thing: after this, airports all over the world, not just in New York, but everywhere all over the world, are going to change forever. And now even Granny is going to get treated like she's a terrorist with suspicion, and everyone's going to get treated with suspicion. You're going to have to take your shoes off. They're going to rifle through your bags, and they're going to do all these things. And then you know, you're going to have to, oh, by the way, you're going to have to take your liquids, your fluids out and all that stuff and put them into a little clear plastic bag. Now, you can't take a 100 ml bottle, but you can take as many of the 50 mils as you like for the same substance.
Yep.
What? Oh, and then you're also going to be body scanned, the giant X-ray machine, and it's going to scan you down to your underwear. Now, if you'd explain this to people before 9/11, they'd have told you that you were insane and that no one would go along with that. You're daft. You sound like a tinfoil hat conspiracy theorist. And then they all went along with it. And I remember the first time I went through airport security after 9/11, I was just shocked. What? Why are you doing? Why are you guys going along with it? Hello, guys. Yeah. And now it's the same thing. The boiling frog effect was so gradual. The fear and the terror was so massive in the beginning. All the scary videos out of, you know, Italy and China and everything else. You scare the shit out of them, and then you just gradually increase the temperature, and they don't even realize after a while who they are or how they used to live. And now, and I remember the first time I walked into my local shop, which at the moment I'm now banned from, and
good for
and and all these stickers were on the floor, and the clear plexiglass was up and all that, and I thought, that's permanent. This is exactly the same feeling I got. And when I went to the airports after 9/11, and so I remember we were outside. The first time I had to do the social distancing queue outside my local store, and there was like 5 people in the store. It was daft. And so there's about 4 or 5 of us in this queue, you know, circles. I refuse to stand directly on them. So there's a point of protest, right? It's always sort of half on them, you know. And it was the first time, and it was only new. Social distancing was brand new. And this is when I really thought, oh God, oh, they got to them. Oh, we were in trouble here. And it wasn't like mandatory masks or anything like that. I knew all that was going to come, and I knew it was going to be as bad as it is now, Blonde. But the first time I realized we're in serious trouble was when I stood in that queue and I tried to do the sort of familiar thing that people do here in Ireland with total strangers. There's a couple of guys behind me. There's one guy in front of me. And I tried to do that. This is mad, isn't it? You know, you catch the eye of a stranger and you just gotta go crazy. And you're like, oh, no, mate, it's fucking, it's just absolutely daft. No, nothing. Every one of them made a point to not look me straight in the eye. And I thought, that's it. They've got them. They've
People
broken social trust.
They're like they're a biohazard or something like that. I mean, I guess that's my next series of questions. How do we wake people up when they're so compliant? Like, I can't even believe how compliant people are. What are the important steps for people to take right now to fight back against this tyranny? What can we do? Because I just traveled across the country because I was like, I'm not flying with my baby daughter. So we drove all the way to Colorado. It was a miserable drive. But even in these supposedly freedom-loving states, the mask mandates were so ridiculous. We had dinner at a restaurant in Montana, and we went in, and we're used to just telling people to fuck off with the mask thing. We just never wear masks. And the lady handed us masks, and she's like, you have to wear these if you're going to be standing in here. And I was like, do we really? And she's like, just put them on for 2 seconds. And then she literally walked us 1 to 2 feet over to the bar. And she's like, you can take them off now. And I was talking to her. I was like, you see that this is insane, right? It's insane. I'm no more likely to get the virus right here, if it exists, rather than right here. It's insane. And she's like, yes, I know, but we have people in plain clothes, officers in plain clothes that are coming to make sure that we're just abiding by this. And we don't want to get shut down. And that's kind of an argument that I'm sympathetic to, because I want small businesses to continue to be able to run. But also, I'm so resistant to all of this. I don't want to do any of it. I just want to make it harder for everybody involved in this. I want people to come up and tell me that I have to wear a mask, that I have to put it on correctly. So, I mean, what can we do? I feel like most people's hands are tied, and they just feel like they have to comply because they don't like the confrontation. Like specific steps that we can really take to fight against the tyranny.
Okay, my 10-point plan for turning this around. Now, you follow these steps to the letter, and it will be okay by Friday, I promise. Blonde, I gotta tell you, I wish I knew. I mean, I've had, as I said to people, dark nights of the soul as well, like everybody else, about this, going, how the hell? Like the biggest problem, like I've always known, I mean, you're the same, you're a small government kind of person, and you understand that governments just want more power. And you've also known that there's these transnational entities and globalists and everything else. And we've always known these evil people were there. And I fully expect them to want to try to exert more control. But the issue is not them, really. The issue isn't even Bill Gates or Klaus Schwab or any of these people. Yeah, the issue is what's on the other side of the frickin' wall. You know, it's the great unwashed out there. It's the zombies. There's a lot of steps to how the compliance has been bought, and I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that life's pretty comfortable. At least over here, they're getting like super dole. You know, they're getting like a lot of money, like 350 euros a week. I think it's been dialed down slightly, but it's a lot of money. And I guess that's like over $400 a week if you just sit on your ass and watch Netflix. Right. So that's a lot of money to a lot of people. And I think as well, it touches on the meaning thing as well. A lot of the young people, I've noticed this. This is the challenge that we may not have had 20, 25 years ago. The youth are not rebellious. They're actually a product of authority because they're the product of that zero tolerance generation. And I don't think they look at the future the way we do, which is that we want to build businesses, be successful, own properties, and raise families and get married, settle down, and have communities and neighbors and that sort of thing. I don't think they see life, a lot of people, the way that we do, because they don't believe that either they're worthy of those things or they'll ever be able to have them, especially young people and Zoomers, because it's so stacked against them. Everything's so ridiculously expensive. Wages are so utterly compressed because of what the globalists have done with mass immigration and everything else. And I don't think they see it. And so all they've really had is degeneracy, drugs, alcohol, and coping mechanisms of maybe I'll be able to get away I'll go backpacking to Cambodia. It couldn't pay me to go to these dumps, or or I'll go on a booze fueled holiday to Spain, and that'll be the cope, and that's all I really have to live for. And I know a lot of people are sort of like that. They're just sort of paycheck to paycheck, just about covering their rent, and that's their life. And so now there's this COVID thing, and it's a raw deal, but it's not too bad. You get around the same amount of money that you get if you were on a minimum wage job, maybe a little more in some cases, and you don't have to do anything. And yeah, so what's really the main issue? I mean, other than the fact that everything's switched off. So there's no fight in people for that reason. And then the businesses, I only found out recently, they're getting paid thousands, some of these bars and pubs, to stay closed, and they don't realize that actually that money you've been given is a huge burden on the state. It's meant to be. It's meant to put the state in massive debt, so then they can go, oh, look at the debt that COVID created. Oh, we'll never be able to pay it back, because there was obviously already massive debt from the capitalist system they wanted to destroy anyway, but they couldn't just erase it. They needed a cover story, so they created a mountain of more debt. And then they'll just turn around and go, well, we better erase it. We better just do the Great Reset now, because that would be and people will look at that and go, that's so benevolent of you thank you, IMF and World Bank. Thank you for doing that. And when that happens, the trap is set. I'm sorry, this is a bit of a black pill. And then that's, people will be like, well, now I don't own property. So that's the central issue, that people are not really understanding the bigger picture here. They're not putting two and two together. They're not thinking as to what can be done. I would have thought after 10 months there would have been more. And there is, and I have to say, there's one positive thing I'll say is people that I meet who wear the mask, even in those restaurant situations that you've described. Like myself and a friend of mine went into a restaurant, and there was a woman wearing a mask there, the waitress, and I said to her, you keep playing with that thing. It's got to be annoying, And she said, oh, yeah, I hate it. But I wouldn't be able to work here if I didn't have it on. And I'm like, are you going to take the vaccine, And she said, no, definitely not.
Very good.
And I said, okay, but you're wearing a mask though. And that's just basically a soft compliance test. Well, it's probably too deep for some normies, but I just said, yeah. She's like, what? Thoughts? She's gonna have a fluoride stare. Okay, sorry. Britain's Got Talent. Sorry, Love Island. Football. Manchester United versus Liverpool. Right? Yeah, gotcha. No, but then she said, I said, what if they don't let you work here anymore without that thing? She said, well, I'll just leave my job then. Okay. So there's some people who will draw a line, blonde. That's the big question. Will they draw the line then And if they do, then maybe this whole thing will come crashing down. I don't know.
I mean, I guess it's a good time to talk about the vaccine because I'm talking to a lot of normies that are like, well, obviously I'll take it because once we take it, everything's going to go back to normal. And I'm like, what?
Right?
I know, right? That's insane because Fauci has already said that people will have to continue wearing masks and social distancing even with the vaccine. And I recently read that 40% of people in the United States are not going to take it. But how many of them are people that just refuse to take it because they associate it with the Trump initiative and they hate Trump so much? And so now once we start getting acclimated to this being a Biden thing, they're going to be like, oh, he's done this great thing for the common good. And then they'll be susceptible to it too. So I'm thinking 80% of people in the United States are probably going to take it. So when I talk to people about it, I'm like, you do realize this is an RNA vaccine, that this is unprecedented, that the cold is a coronavirus, and they've never been able to vaccinate against that. We have no idea what the long-term studies are going to say. Also, in our age group, I think under 50, this has a 99.97% survival rate if this even exists as a unique virus, which I'm not entirely sure that this is even a real thing. I don't know. But what do you tell people when they say they're going to get vaccinated or when you think that they're going to get worn down eventually? What do you tell them? You made an excellent video about sterilization. So if you could talk a little bit about the nature of the vaccine and how it's being perceived by people, that would be great.
Well, you've said something there where you were telling people 99.97, whatever. So when you go into those stats, similarly,
People
if you
don't.
say something like all-cause mortality is down, there's no excess mortality, it's within the normal range, it's not high, so there's no pandemic. And this is something that Ivor Cummins in Ireland is someone else who's doing the stats and real facts and data and looking at the real science. And this is something they tweeted about the other day. And the analogy that I use is that we are using the key of science and reason and logic on the emotion door,
Yeah.
And whereas we need to use the emotion door on the emotion door, right? We're mismatching the keys. That's the big problem. I think we need to reach people with, the heartbreaking stories of the teenagers or the people in the early 20s who commit suicide and the number of people and those individual stories there you talk about, that's useful. As opposed to, well, this person was 84 and they're basically, already on death's door. They were moribund and in a coma and they had their whole long weekend ahead of them, and that's all it was. And then they got this thing and it pushed them over the edge or whatever, or that actually they didn't really die from it. I mean, we need to somehow reach them in that emotional sort of way. But I'm not exactly sure that would be as to with regards to how the kinds of things that you have to say to them. I'm not sure, but I know that you need to reach them emotionally. As for the vaccine, yeah, it's been developed by people who are obsessed with population control, like Gates. And if you look into his father and Planned Parenthood and Margaret Sanger, it's pretty clear that it's really not a good idea to take an injection off somebody who is the biggest funder of an organization, the World Health Organization, that has looked into sterility formulas for a form of contraception through vaccination, and also may have a very checkered history in the third world, as Robert Kennedy Jr. has described, with women in Africa and in India being very severely injured through vaccination and or even sterilized in some places. So it's looking very likely to me that might be the reason, because they're constantly obsessed with the population numbers, which don't make sense when you think about it. And I also think that this thing is probably designed to actually just cause death from the people who take it, regardless of whether they're young or old. So the pathogenic priming that they'll get, where their immune system will actually overreact to the next coronavirus that comes along. It makes sense. Gates is obsessed with the fertility numbers that we're reproducing too much. But here's the thing. Our fertility numbers in the West are pretty low. They're
Dismal.
actually replacement rates.
Terrible.
Yeah, and actually now looking into it, really, it's not just because they got women into the workplace. It's clearly not just that. I mean, sperm counts are low, and it looks to me like we're looking at this now, as in this is the start point of when they're going to start creating the children of men situation, right? That we're all sterile. Nah, it's just kicked off decades ago.
Mm-hmm.
They actually probably have been sterilizing us through food and through water and vaccines for years, and we had no idea. And that's why people are, even men are struggling to, father kids. Sorry, I went on a tangent. You had specific questions there about the vaccine and what you should say to people, maybe, if the arguments.
I think you're totally right about the emotion thing. I'm constantly trying to reason with people, and I just have to tell myself these are not reasonable people. A video that I found very effective in eliciting an emotional response from normies. I don't know if you saw. I'm sure you did. It was this group of people from an old folks' home. They were standing outside the old folks' home, and they were singing, and they were saying, we want to see our families and everything like that. That actually has been very effective, because people are saying, like, isn't it their choice what they want to do with the end of their lives? And we're doing all this stuff to save the old people, to eke out 6 more months from a terminally ill 85-year-old who's just going to die alone. It's like, I would so much rather choose the quality of life in an end of life situation. And we have stripped them of the choice to do this. So that's been a very effective argument for me in the emotional video. So if you could,
that's the big one. Yeah, that's the
yeah.
big one. That ultimately what you see there is the heavy-handed policing of not allowing someone. Like, for example, in the UK, there was a woman who was she actually managed to get her very, very elderly mother into the car, but the policeman stood in front of the car, wouldn't let them leave, and we were getting suitably very, very emotional. And so when you show that to someone, you go, this is the age demographic they're telling us that we have to protect. And yet that same age demographic is not allowed to decide for themselves whether they even want to be protected or not. Would you not call that maybe imprisonment? They've been held hostage and kept in. You're absolutely right. They've been weaponized against us, and now we're all being told that we're safe. That's the killer thing. The derangement is the idea that people who have no symptoms, who know themselves, within themselves, they are healthy, are sick. Now that's magical thinking, Blonde. That's not. You'll never reason with that. That has to gradually erode away by itself. That people have to dawn on them. Like, what I can't fathom is the people who get tested. Whole families going off. To virtue signal about, oh, we got tested. Oh my God, we care about others. And they go off and they get tested, and I'm sure they're taking your DNA with these freaking PCR things. They're probably putting something up there, Lord only knows. And so something on the tip of the thing, so they get tested, and then they're told, oh yeah, you're positive, you've got the COVID, and you've got the COVIDs, and then they're like, okay, so go home now and quarantine for 2 weeks. And they go, all right, go home, quarantine for 2 weeks, I'm cocooning, right? So they go home and they lock themselves in their house, and then they're fine, and 2 weeks pass, and they go, how did you feel? Fine. Did you get sick? No. Any symptoms? No. Were you sick? No. Did you even have flu symptoms? No. Why were you at home? Because they told me I was sick. Does that not dawn on them? Now, I know some people have had the flu, and the flu's been going about, and I'm not denying the existence of the virus. And maybe it is, to some people, it seems to be a mild flu, and other people, it's a bit harsher. But considering flu is all but gone now, you'd have to wonder if it's just the fucking flu. So that's the thing that kills me. Like, people are actually walking around thinking they're sick. I mean, Matt Hancock said it, if we all act like we're sick, then we'll be safer. And that's the critical word, is act, because what is a mask? A masquerade. We're actually just putting on this masquerade. Now, I've never worn a mask at all. And that's why I'm getting in so much trouble now, because I have to tell you, like, between lockdown 2 and lockdown 3 here, of 15 days to flatten the curve 10 months later, there's definitely been a change against people who resist. I don't know. It's not good. Anyway, it seems to me that, and there's definitely been a confidence loss, I think, among people who were previously against this. I remember Simon Dolan in the UK, who's a multimillionaire, who took a case there against the government in the UK, similar to John Waters and Gemma O'Doherty's case. And that was just, basically defeated very, very easily. But he used to do this thing called no mask selfie. And this was back when it was just starting to come in, the masks in the shops, and people would do it. And I don't see that anymore. Like, definitely there was this, okay, we can do this. You know, we're still 70% of people in the shop. Okay, we're 60%. Okay,
Mhm.
we're still 50%. We're 40%. We're a good solid 30% of this, you know? It's still, I tell you what, 10% of people are still not compliant. Oh shit, it's just me. You
Yeah,
know, and that's
yeah.
the way it's going.
And I definitely understand that because when I was driving across the country, we'd have to stop at a gas station, and I was like, I'm gonna pee my pants. I have to go into this gas station, and then they will not let you in unless you're wearing a mask. And so in those instances, I did it. I did it, and I was just thinking, gosh, they're even
You
getting.
traitor. You traitor.
I know, I know. I felt like a traitor. I felt like I had betrayed my own principles, but also, girls gotta pee. So I feel like I kind of am becoming sympathetic to people that are just like, I'm just gonna wear the masks. I have to do these things. But I think if I had to do it again, it's just peeing on the side of the road. That's
Yeah,
probably
look,
what
I
I
get it. I think there's a lot of people who there's no respect really for the idea of liberty anyway, but I like to think that there's a shred of still a belief in bodily autonomy to a certain degree amongst more people. Like, for example, I do expect, I'm hoping to be proven wrong, but I do expect there to be far more resistance to the vaccine than the mask. I know a lot of
Okay.
people, I think they just sort of got, even I spoke to actually a Latvian guy who was very, very red pilled on this the other day. And he was like, he had the mask around his neck, his chin thing. And he was like, I just wear, I said, you got the mask? He said, oh, yeah, I just wear it to go into the shops. I don't want to get hassled. He says, I can see this is communism and there's no way I'm going along with, what's coming down the line. And I think there's a lot of those people. But now, at the same time, I know people who go, well, if you have to take it, you have to take it. You're like, whoa. You're literally setting the precedent where the government can inject you with whatever they want by just declaring an emergency, and then that's it. They have to inject you every year. Yeah, what can you do? I don't know. Life's too short to be a slave. How about that? You could
Yeah,
go in there and you could rip those bastards out of office. Just in Minecraft, just virtually, not in reality, obviously. But look, it's going to get down to that. It's mass non-compliance or nothing. And unfortunately, with the pubs shut off, which is the place that, as that line from The Quiet Man, it's the place we used to go to talk a little treason. With that sort of community setting shut off, people are not being able to, get together, have a pint, go up to the bar and go, this is all a lot of shy, mate, isn't it? Yeah, it's all bollocks. That's gone. And you can't
right.
do it on the bus either. And you're on the bus like this, and you nudge someone and go, you can't do that because you can't be around them. So they've been very clever. It's evil genius, unfortunately.
I know. I'd be rather impressed if I wasn't so horrified. But you sent me a really hopeful message the other day. It was so uplifting, and it's just exactly what I needed to hear, and I really appreciated that. And I was kind of hoping that you would share that wisdom with the audience because I have this tendency to just doom spiral, especially when I look around and I see seas
Right.
of masked people and the
Yeah.
retardation that I live amongst in freedom-loving North Idaho. So how do we stay positive and prevent ourselves from doom spiraling? There's the answer, right? Yeah.
I have to say, the longer this has gone on, Blonde, the more I've sort of reconciled to the fact that we're in definitely tumultuous times, but we're in times that are necessary. That's the reality. I mean, there was, when they say there's no going back, to the old normal, we need to do the new normal. Well, we definitely don't want their new normal because it's hell. But they're kind of right when they say we can't go back. I mean, we need to get back to freedom, but we can't go back to the way things were, because the way things were led us to this. They led the
Exactly.
population astray. Yeah, they made it so that the wool could be pulled over their eyes, so that they would become so blind that they couldn't see. And you got to understand that you can. The people in your audience can. We can see it. And I don't think that's an accident. Evil has to win in the beginning of the movie in order for the good guys to win at the end, right? And the good guys are always few, and the bad guys are many, and they're far more powerful. And most people are like that guy, and other people that I met. I met another guy in town actually, and he was like wearing the mask, but he got it. It was like, yeah, it's all bollocks, mate. And the death numbers don't make any sense either. So there's a lot of those people. The masses go where the 3 to 6% vanguard tend to take them. And when there's enough, it's sort of like when you're standing at one of those pedestrian crossings. It's red, and there's a few cars going by, and then a few people just sort of go, I'm going to go. And one person goes, and Gavin is up, no, 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 stand there, stand there. And then two or three more people go, and then suddenly loads of people go all at once. It's that critical mass. But more than anything, it's a spiritual battle. You know, it is. It's this is supposed to test us in the way that it is. This is supposed to be like we're through this period, and I feel so many of my American friends, what they're going through, and how their hopes have been dashed from the Trump train and everything else. And it's like, that was never going to save you. Now people have to sort of realize you can't put your faith in one human being. You know, there's higher levels that you've got to put your faith in, and we're here for a reason. We're here because we've got to actually fight this. It's a privilege to be able to see this, to actually know what's at stake, and to be able to fight it. And so it's cold comfort, but for people who aren't very spiritual. But for the people who are, you should take strength from that. You know, these are challenges, but stand by your principles. You know, don't comply. It's just not worth it. It's not worth it. The whole thing is meant to crush your soul. But I don't think people will. I think there'll be a bottoming out. I think most people will sort of go, you know, I just want to smile again. I want fun again. I want optimism and hope again. But that's the material aspect of our world is not coming back. So people will have to reach into something within them to find it. And
That's
I think that
definitely true.
comes, yeah, I think that comes from God. You know, I think maybe this is a test in the sense that it's stripping us away of all of the creature comforts we've had. We have a ridiculous level of material comfort and wealth and everything. And I don't think human beings are meant for this sort of sedentary life.
No, we need some hardship, don't we?
We do, and also I don't think that we've been entertaining crazy ideas, Blonde, you know, that are just absolutely antithetical to our morality. You know, they're abhorrent ideas. You know, we've got total LGBT degeneracy. We've got all this global homo. We've got abortion, and nothing's done about it. You know, look, in Argentina, even more so than in Ireland, the women celebrating in the streets that they could kill kids. You know, and it's like it's euphoric. You know, and likewise, it was very similar to that in Ireland, in Dublin Castle after the referendum in 2018. They were celebrating and crying tears of joy that they could now commit abortion. I mean, that's end times prophecy level shit there. You know, that's what you're basically voting for the destruction of your own people. And there has to be a great correction for this. You know, people that we're being faced with a choice. Continue to comply with evil. Okay, you've complied with evil all your life. Some of us have been invested in it, steeped in it, against our own knowledge, against our will. We didn't even realize the social engineering that was being done to us. But then we woke up. Now we have a choice. Now we can see. And likewise, the rest of society is being told, you're not going to get many more opportunities now to wake up. If you continue to simply go along, okay, you've chosen evil. Your acquiescence is a choice in a sense. You know, you've got to do the hard yards up here yourself. You've got to do the thinking. God gave you a brain. You got to use it. And he gave you a spirit, and it's got to be fulfilled. And so there's a crossroads in front of them, and we've got to make a decision. And I think that if we just keep doing this, we're going to be led down a very, very dark path. And thankfully, wherever our bodies go, our souls are going to go to a different place. Whatever they do to us, to the physical, it's not going to matter, because we'll choose Jesus Christ.
I hope you're right. And I do feel a little bit of optimism regarding this hedonistic culture that we have. Because I don't know what your youth was like, but you know, I engage in plenty of degeneracy, and at a certain point, you just become dissatisfied with the material world, and you start to search for something more. And I still believe that in every individual is that wall, that you really hit that wall where you're like, there must be more to life than drinking and, you know, than Instagram and all this stuff. And I just feel like the youth, they have that in them too, because it's just part of being human. It's part of humanity. And so I really am holding out hope that they see that, you know, their little stimulus checks and their stupid remote marketing job and their childless lives and their one holiday or whatever, that these creature comforts are just not going to be enough for them at some point. And I hope that they come to it early enough that they can still have children. Because that really changes people's perspective. But do you think I'm being too optimistic?
Well, I had this notion. I wondered, madmen like Gates and others, are they actually a natural product of the universe, that it throws up these people every so often to, thin the herd? I mean, it's sort of a Noah's Ark, but in a really sinister way. It's sort of this idea of, well, there's no hope for these particular people. I hope.
Right.
I mean, I want everybody to get across, the bridge. I want everybody to get across. But they can't all be saved.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, I like to believe they can be. It's not for me to say, but yeah, I don't know. The Satan's given us a lot, and now it's sort of like I can take all that away, and you've got to choose either me or the other guy, and that path is far harder. It's a much harder road because it's just so easy to acquiesce and go along to get along. I'll just wear the mask. Okay, I'll just take the vaccine. Okay, I'll just be involved in the digital population control grid, and my body is not my own and I have no property. And okay, I'll just eat the bug meat or whatever, the bug patty or whatever they want to give me. It's at a certain stage, it's just got to be, fuck off. I'm not doing
Right.
it.
Yeah, maybe that's the whole purpose of free will. Because I used to think, why were we even granted free will if everything was predetermined, if God had a hand in our lives? And maybe that is the answer. We've been given free will so that when the time comes, we choose to reject Satan. And I think that we are really witnessing this in our everyday lives. Like, we have to choose now. So I think we're kind of rounding things out, but I did have a few questions about what the next few years are going to look like. I am a firm believer that this is it, that we're just going to see the grasp of authoritarianism close even even more strongly in the next few years to come, especially with Biden and Kamala. And I think that, there's going to be mandatory vaccines. Our movement is going to be totally limited. We're not going to be able to get on a plane and everything like that. I'm sure you agree. I don't want to put words in your mouth. But what's
Actually, I was
going?
a lot more optimistic about 2021 than that until you said it. So good night, folks.
I know it. See ya. But I guess the question I have surrounding this is, what's going to happen with alt tech? I know you're big into alt tech. You can plug your BitChute channel in a second. I'm on Gab. I was going to be on Parler before all this crazy shit happened. So do you think that there's a future for alt tech? How are we going to get around these technocrats?
Well, thankfully, there's a few people in relatively, influential areas of the tech world, including, well, I won't name the name of them, but one company that's a very significant amount of the internet backbone, actually, who are really disgusted at what's happening.
Good.
And so I think this censorship is also a wake-up call, even for people on the left. This idea that the president of the United States can be censored like that. It's like, okay, I might hate Trump, but, they can take any of us out then, right? And the precedent's been set. And I think other world leaders like Macron and Merkel have come forward now and said, well, what's to stop them from doing it to us? But see, this is the problem. They were the useful idiots. Right, they were the middle management for the globalists, and now they're realizing, I tell you what, that Mark Zuckerberg that nobody ever voted for has a lot more power than I do over me, and suddenly their political careers look really parochial, small, and out of date, and so. But no, I think all tech will endure unless they. I've always maintained this. Like, if they find ways to survive. And it's like a content creator. If you can keep going, the more potentially dangerous you are. And so ultimately, if they can't take you away from your platform, they can't take the platform away from you. They'll take you away from your platform, and that's when they have to come for you.
Yep.
That's when the purges really begin. And hopefully, at that level, more and more people wake up to it. But I tell you what, there's a lot of people over here that are very scared of police. And I gotta be honest, they're pretty scary. They're scary, they're
I don't know.
they've
You got a
ran
lot
out,
of women in your police force. They don't seem so scary.
Well, yeah, and the guys, I don't know whether they just sort of got their own insecurities, but yeah, look, they've got all these special powers, and they can just come up with anything for any reason. I mean, it's getting to a stage where they can just stop people on the street and ask them, "Where are you going? Where are you coming from?" And then it's just madness. And there'll be more of that. There's just going to be more and more of that. But I think that we're going to reach a crescendo very soon. Everybody's saying it. Everybody is starting to feel that now over the next few weeks as we run up to the 20th. And then there's something weird. There's always the potential for some sort of odd plot twist. And I don't want to get people's hopes up, so I wasn't going to say this, but this is something that Ivor Cummins has talked about as well. Professor Neil Ferguson is suddenly sort of going on about the herd immunity situation. And you have even here in Ireland, Professor Luke O'Neill saying things like people who've had coronavirus are potentially more they have a stronger immunity than people who take the vaccine. And Cuomo coming out in New York saying that we can't wait for the vaccine, we should open up sooner. And see, it might be that they suddenly go, I just, our analytics data that we're constantly looking online, it doesn't look like we're going to get the vaccine compliance we want.
Yeah.
And so look, they've gotten a lot of the things they want. They mightn't get their stretch goals, but they'll get their some form of great reset. They've built up enough debt in the system. They've transferred enough wealth. They've flattened a lot of the middle class. They've put a lot of people into, well, actually, eventually starvation. Let's be honest. But they've at least brought people down into a lot of people into poverty. I think they'll feel that they got a lot of things, even if they don't get cashless society right away. And there might be a slight easing temporarily, and certainly an illusion that things are okay again.
But it's going to be a trap. It's a trap.
It is going to be a trap. I wouldn't be surprised if there's something like in the next within the year or early next year or something that they'll sort of do this. Suddenly, the World Health Organization will come out and go, like on a Friday, some report will just be published and it'll go, the pandemic's basically over.
Yeah.
And then I wouldn't be surprised. And then there's like a reopening situation, and it's just sudden. They might do that in order to make Biden look better, but they'll have enough of the other things that they need, and they'll push mandatory vaccination at the border level so that anybody going in and out of the country has to be vaccinated. And that's how you gradually get more and more people into the system over time.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, definitely.
So that might be something, but then again, it could just be as bad as you say. But I think people are going to realize it once they're like, hold on a second, I still have to do the mask thing and the social distancing, and I'm still having to do lockdowns even after I've had my second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth. How many of these freaking things? What's in this stuff? Like, what's this? I just can't see. I can't see it getting as bad as we fear it getting, or anywhere near as good as the World Economic Forum thought. And just one piece of hope, I suppose. The United Nations partnered with the World Economic Forum because the United Nations is a bit shit at what it does, which is that their Agenda 21 was bollocks. Like, it wasn't working. The Agenda 2030 Sustainable Development Goals, recently, what's his name? Jack Dorsey just tweeted on New Year's Day, 2030, ominous, right? It wasn't working. It wasn't being pushed across the line. Greta Thunberg didn't work. Likewise, Extinction Rebellion didn't work. They went with the virus thing. That was successful for them. But most of the time, just like the climate change narrative, they have more misses than hits. Yeah. And that's why the UN partnered with the World Economic Forum last year to team up, because they had similar goals, and to let the World Economic Forum be the think tank that drives the thing forward. And so that's something to hope to, that these people, there's a lot of spinning plates involved with this fourth industrial revolution thing, and these people are not as competent as we give them credit for. So
I certainly hope so. I don't want to underestimate their competence again, but I do think you may be right. That's a good note to end on. So thank you so much for joining me, Dave. That was such a lovely conversation. And if you can tell the audience where to find you on alternative media, I think your second stint on YouTube is going to be short-lived. No offense.
My first YouTube career was 14 years. This one might be 14 days,
yeah,
or less. Don't bother subscribing on YouTube. Please. I never thought I'd say that. Go over and follow me on the BitChute machine, and also Gab TV, which is actually separate from Gab. Gab's kind of slow at the moment because Torba's got to get some more servers in there. Mastodon is sort of hard to grow. And then I suppose, well, Gab TV, Odyssey, and Minds, and I'm going to have to add a few more. I suppose I'm going to.
Okay, sure. And everything's going to be linked in the description if you want to find Dave there. And thanks again. And I hope to see you soon. Bye.